We've won millions, taken on the largest insurers, and backed up our reputation with big wins in the courtroom. But only one injury case matters, yours. So if you want to win, we're ready to fight for you.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
Good morning, Baltimore. It is Thursday, March 12th. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of the Early Birds Pod. I'm your host, Matt Weyrich, alongside Ravens reporter Sam Cohn and columnist Josh Tolentino, calling in from Sarasota, Florida, where his flight has been delayed. Unfortunate for Josh that he wasn't able to get going, heading back here to Baltimore, but fortunate for us that we get to have him on the show after what has been one of the craziest four-day stretches in Ravens history. Sam, we got to just jump right into it. Walk us through what happened.
Can I say real quick, it's the biggest cliche in all of podcasting, but we actually do have what is deemed a jam-packed show today.
Indeed.
Which is awesome and exciting. So, yeah, let's go back to Friday. It's been a whirlwind of 4 or 5 days. So, start with Friday at 2 o'clock. Lamar Jackson posts a GIF of Denzel Washington in training day. It just says, boom.
Still hate that you call it a GIF. But
and everyone says, okay, what the hell is going on? 7 hours later, and we'll kind of run through this, 7 hours later, Maxx Crosby deal announces that the Ravens have traded 2 first-round picks in exchange for Raiders all-world edge rusher Maxx Crosby. Next day, Saturday, Maxx Crosby posts a 13-minute video of him saying goodbye to Las Vegas, the fact that he wants to come back one day and be a Raider, but for now he's coming to Baltimore to try to win a Super Bowl. All is well and great through the weekend. Come Monday, the start of the legal tampering period, one by one, Ravens free agents are being plucked by other teams. Worst of all is Tyler Linderbaum, who was the most important guy on the list of Ravens free agents they had to worry about. He signs for $1 bajillion to go to the Raiders. It was a 3-year, $81 million contract. Tuesday, we get a bomb from the Raiders. Tuesday evening, the Raiders announced that the Baltimore Ravens have backed out of the deal. Reporting starts to follow, and we're going to get into all this about Maxx Crosby's medicals and the thinking that the Ravens may have gotten cold feet on the deal. Wednesday morning, the Ravens acted quickly. Josh, I think, put this on Twitter that Eric DeCosta probably didn't get much sleep, if at all, because by first thing the next morning, we get reporting about Lamar Jackson's contract restructure and that the Ravens have signed free agent pass rusher Trey Hendrickson to a, Josh, help me out here. Was it 3 years?
4 years, 112?
4 years, 112. Thank you. 4 years, $112 million deal. So they lose Max, they end up getting Trey, and then today, on short notice, we find out Eric DeCosta is going to be speaking with reporters, and that's where we are now. You'll be listening to this on Thursday, but we just heard Eric DeCosta speak, and we're going to get into all that. So it's been a lot going on.
Yeah, certainly whiplash for Ravens fans. Here's what Eric DeCosta had to say in Owings Mills on Wednesday about how the trade fell apart and where Trey Hendrickson started to factor into the mix.
There's a lot of different parts involved with the trade process. We've done a lot of different trades, and one of the key things is that, you bring the player in, you try to get as much information as you can. We did that, and we were not able to complete the process of acquiring the player based on, our assessment of the situation. Very, very, I think, disappointing to me. Nobody more disappointed than me. Player I greatly admire. I think one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. In terms of Trey, I think we came to a point probably after we lost Tyler where, as we're trying to find the best way for us to get better as a football team, Trey kind of made a lot of sense as a possible guy to look at. So we started some discussions with he and his agent, thinking that, potentially we'd have 2 pass rushers on the defensive line on both sides of the line. Again, I think it was disappointing, to us, and probably in a way, potentially disappointing probably to Trey as well.
Josh, you've been watching a little bit from afar here, but what's just in your reaction of how everything has unfolded?
Guys, does anyone believe Eric DeCosta just on the fact alone that he's insinuating that they were going after not only one Maxx Crosby, but one Trey Hendrickson to have both of them patrol their edges? I know this team could not sniff any quarterbacks last year. We've discussed that at nauseum, at length. 30 sacks, third fewest in the NFL, far from the Ravens standard of just a couple of years ago when this was the most dominant defense in the NFL. But, I mean, it sounds pretty fishy. I mean, we're talking about two players, right? Based on Trey Hendrickson's salary and what Maxx Crosby is making with the Raiders, that represents nearly a quarter of the cap. You add in Lamar Jackson, you're almost at 40% of the cap between three players. And we know the Ravens, they have other high price tags between Kyle Hamilton, Nnamdi Madubuike. So it's just very when he said that earlier, that and not only that a report leaked prior to Eric DeCosta speaking that the Ravens were in on both players, that they had them both in their plans, and he didn't really acknowledge the pathway for that. And again, Eric DeCosta, he did say we live in a world of skepticism. I think anyone is naturally going to have questions when you go through the experience of what a Ravens fan has gone through these last 3 to 4 days. Cannot even imagine what Maxx Crosby is dealing with. We know how excited he was. He was already posting Kodak Black lyrics in his post.
He was ready, posting from high rise in Baltimore. He was ready to be here and ready to get to work. Josh, I want to cut you off, if that's okay, real quick, because I think I'm with you on this whole, like, EDC saying there's going to be a lot of skepticism, and that's natural in this industry. And I'm with you that at the end of the day, whether his reasoning is feasible or not is a conversation to be had. But for sake of clarity for our listeners, I just want to give a sense of what he said in terms of justifying the way things played out with Maxx Crosby, Tyler Linderbaum, and Trey Hendrickson. So the way he explained it is that he didn't get into specifics, understandably so, or as we had figured, he didn't get into specifics about what happened exactly with Maxx Crosby's medicals, what he knew, what he found out, and where that happened. But after Maxx Crosby, on Monday, when Linderbaum signed for so much money with the Raiders, and Eric DeCosta is looking at his roster and saying, okay, we're getting Maxx Crosby, we're losing 2 first-round picks, one of which could be used on backfilling that offensive line. He's starting to think, what is the best way I can again, this is his justification and his explanation for what happened. He sees Linderbaum walk out the door and he says, I need to find a way to make this team better because we just got worse by losing a guy in Linderbaum. And he saw Trey Hendrickson still available on the free agent market and said, I wonder if those two guys could be together on our defensive line. I wonder if we could have both those guys in a dynamic duo of pass rushers. And then by Tuesday night, they see Maxx Crosby's medicals, the trade falls through, and they get Trey Hendrickson in the morning. A lot of the immediate reaction, and again, speculation or thinking, was that what probably happened is after Maxx Crosby's medicals fell through, they pivoted and very quickly pivoted, saw a guy who hadn't been picked up by another team, were willing to pay the price to get him in the door, who's Trey Hendrickson's 31 years old, coming off a year where he missed, I think it was 10 games. 23 and 24, he was excellent. But coming off a year where he missed a bunch of time, and they pivoted and go get him. So that was his justification. I'm curious if you guys have other thoughts there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate really quick.
Do it.
The Ravens knew they were not getting Tyler Linderbaum back at the castle. When you look at the negotiation, Eric DeCosta has he rarely ever puts details into the public lens. So when he went to the NFL Combine stage and went in front of a camera and spoke in front of a microphone, and he knew it was going to be viewed by Tyler Linderbaum, his agent, and millions of NFL fans, that just spoke to the tense levels of negotiations and just how cautious or how worried they were, rather, that they weren't going to get a deal done. And as the hours crept towards Monday's legal tampering period, I think everyone just had the realization that. So, again, I'm a little skeptical, or not a little, but a lot skeptical when it comes to the timeline that Eric DeCosta played out earlier with as it pertains to the Tyler Linderbaum factor, because I mean, all along they knew they were going to have trouble getting him to come back to Baltimore when it came to the financial aspect. And just real quick, some scenery here, guys. I was in the Orioles clubhouse when all of this broke, and Yeah, actually, I'll throw this to Matt. Matt, who do you think was the first player to acknowledge the news on the Orioles?
Jordan Westberg.
He plays that close. He plays in the infield.
I'll go Kobe Mayo. He's
Oh
tapped in.
man, I thought you would get this one for sure. It's one of their fantasy football man. He's a fantasy football
Ryan
nerd.
Mountcastle.
Yes,
Mountcastle?
there you go. It's
Wow.
Mounty who actually got injured in yesterday's game. It seemed like a precaution. The imaging came back negative, but yeah, Mounty was all on the Trey Hendrickson news.
A lot of these guys are pretty big into fantasy, I will say. It's a very common discussion late in the season every year.
Yeah, so it caused for some nice clubhouse banter before they got on the field for their pregame work. But Mounty, he even noticed it before it was on TV, and within a couple minutes, you know how the setup is in there, Matt. Everyone was chatting about it, and then Craig Albernaz even later in the day. So
I'm sure. What I just can't wrap my head around is and assuming that the problem was with the knee, and obviously we don't know for sure what exactly the Ravens saw in the imaging that gave them pause about this whole thing. But, I mean, Maxx Crosby had meniscus surgery in January. You're going to get imaging on that knee. It's not going to look good. I mean,
Yeah.
you're probably not expecting much. And honestly, it's very hard to tell that early in the recovery from it how everything is going to come together. You have to let the natural healing process happen. So what exactly gave them cold feet from that? What information did they gain from getting that up-close look that they weren't already getting from what the Raiders provided? To me, it just doesn't line up, and something does feel a bit off. And obviously, the quick pivot to Trey Hendrickson as well. I mean, when the Crosby trade fell through, it almost felt like they had to sign Trey Hendrickson because at that point,
He was their only option.
It was the only option. I mean, Bradley Chubb was out there. Could have gone for a low-cost guy like K'Lavon Chason. But you needed an impact guy. Yeah. And really, Trey Hendrickson, all-pro type, NFL sack leader.
And Trey
player.
Hendrickson, again, in 2023 and 2024, posted 17.5 sacks in back-to-back years. He was number 2 and then number 1 in the NFL in sacks. The Ravens have never had a player in 30 years hit over 17 sacks. Elvis Dumervil holds the franchise record with 17. So if you can get the 2023-2024 version of Trey Hendrickson, you're in business. But two things. One, Maxx Crosby is an elite run defender. Trey Hendrickson, some are calling him a one-trick pony. He's exceptional bringing down the quarterback, but he's not nearly the run defender that Maxx Crosby is. And two, you're going after another guy who you're paying a lot of money, who's 31 years old and also coming off a season where he just had surgery. I think my entire...
And you're tacking on a 4th year as opposed to having 3 for Maxx Crosby.
That's right. The podcast that, what day is it? Josh and I recorded the emergency pod, and then we recorded a pod over the weekend. Both times, I understand people's skepticism of the giving up 2 first-round picks, but I did really feel so strongly that, this is what they finally had to do. They had to break away from the mold that they've been working with for however many years, and they had to take a swing and do something awesome to get over the hump to get to a Super Bowl. And what that looked like was trading away 2 first-round picks for a guy who's going to immediately change your defense. Eric DeCosta said today, it gutted him, but he said Maxx Crosby plays like a Raven. And then you lose Tyler Linderbaum. You have to take swings like that, and then they get cold feet. And I just don't know. I mean, the biggest question, of course, is going to be the question on everybody's mind that may never get answered, is the Ravens are a team that does their due diligence. This wasn't a secret. Maxx Crosby's one of Maxx Crosby's agents, one of his from his representation, said it was very well known that Crosby would not be back on the field until June or July. I just find it really hard to believe that the Ravens went into bringing him to Baltimore with any kinds of questions. This is a team that would not trade 2 first-round picks without having done their due diligence. So we're never going to know, but it is interesting. What could they have found out that would have given them cold feet if not feeling like there was another reason to pivot?
There's a lot of reports floating around out there of who knows what exactly is true in this whole situation. But one I saw was that the Ravens weren't necessarily concerned about the short-term impact of this injury, but necessarily the long-term one. You're signing a guy to a 3-year deal. You only have Lamar Jackson under contract for 2 more years. It's about the next 2 seasons, right? Yeah. If you were so concerned about the long-term, why did you make the deal in the first place? Giving up 2 first-round picks is throwing your long-term concern out the window, going all in on 1 year. Were you really that concerned that he was going to tear his meniscus again right away? Probably not. You know, maybe you felt like, okay, it'd wear down later on, but like that's what it's going to look like.
Of all people, Maxx Crosby's the one who's going to put in the work to
Right.
be that guy to get back to where he needs to be. He is. I mean, we've spent time talking about like how Jordan Westberg is the guy who will do anything to get back on the field because he's just that level of competitor. Like that's Maxx Crosby, and that would be such a win for Baltimore's locker room. He would do wonders for them. And seeing Jordan Stout walk out the door, and seeing Linderbaum walk out the door, and Isaiah Likely walk out the door, and Pat Ricard walk out the door, like all those guys in their respective groups and in the locker room at large play a big role from a leadership standpoint. Backfilling that part of the locker room with a guy like Maxx Crosby would have been huge for them. And granted, Trey Hendrickson can be really good for them, but it just, I think when this happened, I thought, okay, this is a half decent consolation prize because they get their picks back and they get a guy who can still be a difference maker, sacking the quarterback. But the more you unfurl it, it just feels like more of a drop off than they would have liked.
It's funny you mentioned Jordan Westberg, Sam, because he's dealing with his own injury, a UCL tear in his elbow and his throwing elbow. And you know who he went to after meeting with team doctors with the Orioles?
It's not, but it would be funny if it was Maxx Crosby.
It's Elatrash.
I know.
Dr. Neil Elatrash, who is anyone in sports knows who this is, and that is Maxx Crosby's surgeon. I mean, he handles so many different procedures for. You can look up any star, prolific athlete, and he himself released a statement today. He appeared on ESPN, basically sharing his prognosis and the outlook of Maxx Crosby's knee, noting to everything that you just said, Sam, and that hoping that he is on track is the phrase that he used multiple times. So that just made it even more. And we're not privy to the medical background and the situations. We're not in those meetings or in those rooms, but considering the subjects at hand. This isn't like a physician off the street. This is someone who handles literally the highest paid, highest performing athletes that are out there across multiple sports, including the baseball team that plays right across the street. So just to add to the more puzzling factor of how this came out. And just so one more point, you listed all of those veteran leaders that are leaving the locker room. That was the domino effect of all of this because they acquired Maxx Crosby to basically kick off the start of the legal tampering period. This was the big domino to fall, and not only for Baltimore, the rest of the league. Obviously, Las Vegas, they bring in Tyler Linderbaum and a handful of other players. The Ravens, they really were not active in free agency until Wednesday after they were able to acquire Trey Hendrickson, after they failed Maxx Crosby. So you got to imagine, and I know we're playing a hypothetical, but if this trade doesn't happen, are they able to keep at least one or two of those guys that have already left out the door? So.
And you know where three of those guys went?
New York Giants.
Right up the highway to go play for John Harbaugh. Who's had a better week than John Harbaugh?
Yep. So a lot to stomach with this Crosby situation into Trey Hendrickson, but at the end of the day, optics aside, just looking at the Ravens' ability to contend for a Super Bowl in 2026 and beyond, do you think they're in better position now with Trey Hendrickson and their first-round picks, or had completed the Maxx Crosby deal? That's
a really good question because, just 24 hours ago, or I guess closer to 48 as when people are listening to this, Josh, Mike Preston was writing that the Ravens were doomed. When that deal falls apart, and they watched all those guys walk out the door, this was a team that was completely falling apart at the heels. This was a disaster class. Getting those two picks back and getting Trey Hendrickson, I feel like kind of levels out. Like if you had it on a graph, getting Max takes their... I looked at the odds. I don't think their Super Bowl odds really changed much at all, but it did probably tick a tiny bit up. But I think if you put on a graph of like your average expectations, introducing Max to that defense, the number goes up. They lose Linderbaum, it comes down. They lose Max, it drops way down. And they bring in Trey, and it kind of levels out back to where you want it to be. But they have a lot more issues to solve. Like this doesn't figure things out for them because that defense, We're going to talk about the guys that all the changes from free agency that happened, but they bring in a guy like Jalen Hawkins from New England, could be a really good addition at safety for them, and Trey Hendrickson can help in the sack department. And if Nnamdi Madubuike is healthy, which we didn't get an update on him today, like that defense could look a lot better in 2026 than it did in 2025. But as of right now, you have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and no one to block for them, because the interior offensive line could hypothetically, as it stands today, be Emory Jones, maybe Corey Bullock and John Simpson on the interior offensive line. And granted, they could use that number 14 pick on Vango Ioane from Penn State, who could be a day one starter for them and help out in the interior offensive line. But they have so many other issues to solve, and Maxx Crosby elevates your ceiling so much more. I think Trey Hendrickson, again, like we haven't seen him play that kind of football in a year. Right now, it feels like he elevates the floor a lot more. So I think that with Max over Trey, and Max no picks and Trey, but obviously Linderbaum is such a question mark here. So, Josh, I'm curious your thoughts. I'm kind of rambling here.
No, go. I mean, we're free to ramble. I'm about to ramble.
That's what podcasting's for. That's what having a podcast
That's why we started
is about.
this, right?
Yeah, to ramble.
All right, so to get back to Matt's question on, looking at the value, Maxx Crosby versus a Trey Hendrickson. Maxx Crosby, I mean, their pass rush and how they affect the quarterback might look a little similar and level. I'm gonna tell you this, guys. Trey Hendrickson, he is not the same run defender that Maxx Crosby is. He does not set the edge as well, not clearly as well. Maxx Crosby graded out as a top 5 run defender on the edge. Trey Hendrickson in the 30s, so that just tells you the drop-off that they're getting there in terms of run defense. And this is a team that things did get better in the run defense department last year, especially after Roquan Smith got healthier. You saw the middle level really starting to clean it up. But, guys, in 6 of their 9 losses, they gave up over 100 rushing yards. So that just tells you in terms of how thin the margins were in this division coming down to that last game. And for 6 of those 9 contests to be determined by, or I'm sorry, in 6 of those 9 losses when you were getting gashed over and over again, man, I mean, Maxx Crosby, he's definitely going to help you in that department. So we'll see if Jesse Minter, their first-year head coach, who has, again, engineered defensive turnarounds at Los Angeles these past 2 seasons, if he is able to help in that regard. But, man, at least he gets a pass rusher, because we've gone on and on about how they could not sniff opposing quarterbacks. Still a lot of work to do. I agree with you there, Sam, on the offensive line, but run defense for sure. The profile is just not the same when comparing Crosby to Hendrickson.
Real quick, speaking of the run defense, Josh, you mentioned how they just got gashed over and over again, especially at the beginning of the season. I think the Lions went for, 250 on the ground in Baltimore in prime time, too. At the bye week, Josh, we had started talking to a lot of people in and outside the building about what was going on and what was wrong with the Ravens at that point in the season. And I talked to a former player from that 2001 team, which famously was one of the greatest defenses of all time, and a defensive player from that 2001 Ravens team. I asked him about how John Harbaugh said, everything that they feel like they're doing wrong defensively can be fixed. Everything they're doing wrong across the board, he felt like can be fixed. And I said, when you watch this team on tape and you hear John Harbaugh, or when you watch this team on Sundays and you hear John Harbaugh say that, like, do you think that's possible? Do you think it's feasible for it to be a quote-unquote quick fix? And he goes, what are you trying to fix, sand? They didn't have, his argument was that they didn't have the talent or the technique to get through, for them to fix that. And Maxx Crosby would have been an immediate fix in that department. Trey Hendrickson, as Josh has talked about, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a reason Trey Hendrickson goes kind of lingering on the market, too. I mean, there were reports coming out that he was $10 million apart from all the other teams that were interested in his services. And there were teams that were kind of looking at a shorter-term deal, considering he was 31. And he obviously had a very public saga with the Bengals that led to him being a free agent now, a free agent to the point where he was unrestricted. To get to this point really took a lot of maneuvering and working through the tag and things like that with the Bengals. So that he got to this point and then wasn't getting the market he was looking for. Ravens-Maxx Crosby deals fall through. There's a lot of pressure on the Ravens to make that deal happen. Almost felt like they were bidding against themselves here. So they come in, as opposed to had they just been able to sign him in free agency without the whole Crosby drama, feel like they maybe would have been able to get him for maybe 3 years or a lower AAV. And ultimately, Hendrickson gets the deal that he's looking for. It's a gamble, almost as much of a gamble as what Crosby brought with the first-round picks and everything like that. But Crosby, and this isn't necessarily a slight on Trey Hendrickson's attitude and what he brings to a locker room and things like that. But Crosby was the type of player you could give up 2 first-round picks for, not just because of who he is on the field, but because who he is off of it and how much he can set your culture and really have a lot of guys buy into who he is. And being a finisher at the ends of games is something that was really talked about with him. Had one of the highest pressure rates in the fourth quarter of any edge rusher in the NFL, an area that the Ravens have consistently come up short in. For somebody who almost a specialty player in that way to kind of fit in with this team, it really did feel like a perfect fit and something I think was worth giving up the 2 first-round picks for. But now to end up with Trey Hendrickson, yes, you get your picks. Yes, there are other areas of need that you're now able to address with that. Your cap situation is still in just as much of a dire situation, if not more, because of your ability to restructure Matt Crosby's deal down to, I think it was like $17 million or something like that, from the 35 plus or whatever it was. So you theoretically would have had even more cap space to work with in 2026 had they kept Crosby.
Bottom line, and Josh, I'm curious your thoughts on this. The Trey Hendrickson deal feels so much more like a Ravens type deal. Mm-hmm. And the Maxx Crosby deal was Eric DeCosta's version of what Jesse Minter has talked about since being hired, which is the new age of playing like a Raven. And Eric DeCosta had finally done something that was the new age of managing, of general managing what a Raven and being in this new era of the Ravens. So, yes, at the end of the day, Trey Hendrickson is a pretty good addition at a position of need, but we're thinking about it so much differently because we finally saw Eric DeCosta do the thing that fans had wanted for years and years and years to what they thought would help them get over the hump, and they had it for 4 days.
They got him at a Ravens bargain. I mean, this is 100% a Ravens deal, and a pivot has been a big phrase that's been used today. That's exactly what they did. Guys, his salary of $28 million per year, 11th among edge rushers. And
well,
Crosby...
Are we calling that a bargain? I mean, that's still a premium price.
I mean, when we're talking about how these high, not just high paid, but the most important positions in football, when you look at impact players, when you look at edge rushers, when you look at wide receivers, we see their markets booming. They're just continually rising as the salary cap rises year after year after year. We saw the number one pass rusher this past season, and Micah Parsons get his deal done to become the highest paid pass rusher. So yeah, I mean, by no means is $28 million anything to squawk at, but relatively compared to the rest of the market, I mean, this is what, 17 million less than the highest paid player, almost.
But he turns 32 in December. I mean, it's not like you're getting a guy in your prime like you were with Crosby. Even Crosby a little bit towards the end of his prime, but at least close enough.
Exactly, and yes, and everything that we discussed earlier with him not bringing enough oomph and enough production as a run defender, I think this all comes into it along with his age. And the fact that this is, I mean, he's been seeking this big deal for a while. After he got those 17.5 sacks, nothing to be found in terms of his market and his value and what he was looking for. And the fact that, we brought up all the points of skepticism and puzzling things of this timeline earlier. One thing that we forgot to bring up is Trey Hendrickson in his camp, not necessarily signing on that first day and waiting until Wednesday. So, and I know Eric DeCosta did allude to that they were talking apparently about adding Trey and adding Max together to Trey. At what point did those conversations occur? Was it on Monday?
Well, there was. I believe it was Adam Schefter reported on Wednesday today that at some point there was a conversation between Eric DeCosta and Trey Hendrickson, in those initial pitches to say, hey, you could come here and play with Maxx Crosby. And after the Crosby deal fell through, they continued that. When exactly those conversations were, we're not sure. And I think the other thing that I want to mention here too is, and I'm curious, like, for you guys, what was your favorite part of Maxx Crosby's 4 days as a Raven? Because for me, I think it was that 13-minute video where he's sitting down like Matt and I are right now with lights and a camera, and he's saying, one day I'm going to retire a Raven. Or, sorry, I messed that up. One day I'm going to retire a Raider. But for now, I'm coming to Baltimore and I'm going to be a Raven. I just don't think someone makes a video like that and does something like that. Granted, he's a podcaster like us, so maybe he's just doing it for whatever. But I don't think you sit down for 13 minutes and say your goodbye to Las Vegas, a team that drafted you, unless you feel that confident that everything is going to be fine. Like, unless he must have had no concerns. So it's interesting. I mean, again, it's the kind of thing we're probably never going to know, but what gave the Ravens cold feet?
I think the Raiders statement was so hilarious. Just we'll have no further comment at this time. Just dropping one of the biggest bombs of the NFL offseason with their little graphic with their names circled and the logos.
Why did they only circle one of them? Why didn't they circle all the Raiders logos on the bottom?
So that's
honestly, the question. On our next podcast, we're going to be
diving into the graphic design element of it.
I'm going to steal a line from Eric DeCosta here. You got to feel for the player. I mean, Maxx Crosby, I mean, could you imagine how pumped the emotion? I mean, us as ones that observe the team and provide content and news to the fan base, for the fan base to pour their hearts in. I mean, I obviously there were no Maxx Crosby jerseys sold technically, but I mean that you got to imagine that would have been skyrocketing had he actually arrived in Baltimore through the new league year on Wednesday. But man, you got to feel for the player because he obviously takes down the post, which was already he was so excited, as you alluded to, Sam, having a near 15-minute emotions pouring out of thanking individuals by name across the Raiders franchise, guys who have helped him through the injuries that are now coming up in these apparent medical concerns from the Ravens side, and speaking that he was going to give his everything to Baltimore to. Obviously, he takes down everything, and then I think we're all watching Maxx Crosby's social media like hawks from that point. To him, obviously leaving Baltimore on his private jet, and at 5 a.m. this morning, he is in his car blasting Future. I mean, there's no way to describe the emotions that he's going through. And man, I don't know if he's going to be a Raider next season in 2027, but that is the next time the Ravens do play the Raiders.
Yep.
If you're Lamar Jackson. Right? Yes, and if you're Lamar Jackson, that offense line, I'd watch out. Again, anything could happen between Maxx Crosby's future in Vegas and there. But for whatever team, when he plays the Raiders, when he plays the Ravens, I'd circle that guy's number.
I was gonna say we can wrap up this conversation here. Like, talk about giving a guy fuel. That's the worst guy you want to give fuel to, because worst case scenario for the Ravens is that Trey Hendrickson is. Let's just say Trey Hendrickson is Draymond Jones. Let's say he comes in and he gives juice to the pass rush, and he's probably your best pass rusher. Again, we don't know about Nnamdi, so if Nnamdi comes back, that's a different scenario. But let's say he comes in and he's your best pass rusher. On a team that doesn't have a lot of pass rush juice, but he gives you admirable number of sacks, and he's a really solid contributor. Okay, let's say Maxx Crosby's playing, maybe it's the Raiders, maybe it's somewhere else. Worst case scenario for Baltimore, Maxx Crosby week 1 has 3 sacks. Maxx Crosby gets double-digit sacks in 2026. Maxx Crosby gets 14 sacks, and Trey Hendrickson plays 5 games. That's worst case scenario. The Ravens look really bad if that happens. Ravens look really, really good if Maxx Crosby's not ready for week 1, not ready for week 7, not ready for week 11, finishes with 4 sacks, and Trey Hendrickson has a double-digit sack season. We're going to be watching, Ravens fans are going to be watching Maxx Crosby every Sunday, hate watching Maxx Crosby every Sunday, hoping he doesn't do well so the Ravens look okay. Or maybe watching it because they hate watching the Ravens and they want him to do well so the Ravens look bad. Who knows? But be interesting to follow along.
I don't want the Ravens to look bad, but I do want the player to overcome. I mean, the Ravens essentially just threw dirt all over his name, and you hope that he's able to come back from this. And again, I'd be very, very interested in the next time that he does play the Ravens and Lamar Jackson.
Without a doubt.
Crosby also put out that Wednesday was the anniversary of when he went sober. So
Yeah, 6 years.
take that as you will as well. It's obviously an important day for him, but just adding some
Water
fuel.
cheers to Maxx Crosby.
There
Nice.
it is. All right,
Fiji water too, Josh. I see you.
There has certainly been non-Maxx Crosby and Trey Hendrickson news related to the Ravens here, with free agency opening on Wednesday, the legal tampering period beginning a couple of days prior. So we're going to kind of run through real fast a few of the news and notes here from Ravens world. And we'll start with Lamar getting his contract restructured. $40 million in cap space created for 2026. Sam, how necessary was this for the Ravens offseason?
I mean, Eric DeCosta said they were running out of time. Like, they had to do something. The downside is it kicks the can down the road, and now Lamar Jackson probably has a little bit more leverage when they get to next year, and they have to figure out an extension if they don't figure out anything by then. But if you were the Ravens, you really wanted to get an extension done and just have this be over with.
Josh.
Man,
Go ahead.
if you were Lamar Jackson, I think this was the best scenario in his mind. Obviously, they did not come to terms on an agreement in terms of an extension. Look at the quarterbacks that are going to hit the market next year. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams. And when I say hit the market, those three quarterbacks are eligible for contract extensions. So, man, that is pretty good company. Obviously, Lamar is his own entity in terms of being a two-time, should have been three-time MVP. But when you are being able to juice up your own market with that level of competition, a quarterback that just reached the Super Bowl, a quarterback in Caleb Williams, who your now new boss supervised last year and really led him to a resurgence in his second season. And then Jaden Daniels, we saw what he was able to accomplish if he's able to have a bounce-back year. So if Lamar can have one get-right year, and obviously I think there are concerns with them needing another pass catcher, Tuesday Flowers, and you wonder if Derrick Henry can continue his dominant Hall of Fame stretch. But if Lamar can piece together a respectable season, guys, he's definitely. I mean, that is a pretty good company in terms of fighting for market price and really to reset that number when he really looks to cash in with an extension next offseason.
He's going to command a lot of money.
Indeed. Josh, going to kick it right back to you. Keaton Mitchell not tendered a contract. Surprising to you? And do you expect now the Ravens to draft the running back this year?
You know, at that price, not entirely surprised, and I would not expect him to be back. I have not seen reports in terms of where he's headed, but he did post a goodbye video to Baltimore and thanking Ravens fans, a video montage that he posted on his Instagram story. So Keaton Mitchell out the way, and then obviously the Ravens are going to need to go ahead and add that to Eric DeCosta's list of needs in terms of not just the returner he was, but also just the second punch he was to a Derrick Henry to be able to. Obviously, I don't want to get this mixed up with Todd Monken not giving Derrick Henry the ball, but Keaton Mitchell did provide some nice juice, a different change of pace with his speed and agility. So again, just another item on EDC's to-do list.
Agreed, but the other side of that is they might feel okay if they can have Justice Hill and Rasheen Ali, who we saw Rasheen Ali get a little bit more tick this past year, especially there was a confusing time sort of midway through the year when he was getting a few more touches than Keaton Mitchell, and there was some head scratching, and then obviously Keaton Mitchell ends up as your RB2, and Justice Hill gets hurt. So if you can have a healthy Justice Hill and Rasheen Ali is what they expect him to be, like, maybe you're okay at that position.
Tyler Linderbaum, we alluded to earlier, signed with the Raiders, 3 years, $81 million, absolutely blowing the center market out of the water. Were the Ravens ever going to meet that price?
Yeah, it's funny. I did want to tell this story really quickly. Eric DeCosta said today that, I mean, we heard him say they gave a market-setting offer to him, and he was asked today, were you guys in it near the end, or did you ever have a chance? What was going on? And he told a story about how when he was younger, he didn't say how young, I'm curious, because he said he was ready to buy a house, and let me tell you, I'm 26, I'm not ready to buy a house, but he was ready to buy a house. He was trying to buy a house in Fed Hill in downtown Baltimore, and he goes to the realtor and he puts down an offer, and the realtor comes back to him and says, well, we got a cash offer, so we're gonna need you to bump that number up. And he's like, he was like, well, I kind of gave him all the money I have, but he did go a little bit higher, and then he realized he had nothing, and he ended up getting the house. And he said that was sort of how he felt with Linderbaum. Someone else came in and just went way over the number, and then he felt like he was left with nothing, and he didn't want to go over again and be left with absolutely nothing. So I think that if the only way they would have been able to get Linderbaum back in Baltimore is if Linderbaum was willing to take a hometown discount.
Yep, certainly.
And maybe if the Raiders came in, maybe if the Raiders came in at 24 million a year, Linderbaum says maybe that's not enough for me to feel like I want to leave, but 27 million a year is a lot of money, so can't blame him for chasing the bag.
Certainly not. Josh, offensive line staying with the theme. Ravens sign guard John Simpson, bringing him back to Baltimore on a 3-year, $30 million deal after a couple of seasons with the Jets. Not necessarily a big splashy move, not coming off of the best season of his career. Where do you feel like they need to pivot to next for this offensive line?
With John Simpson, the biggest thing there is familiarity. Obviously, has been with the Ravens before, is familiar with playing in M&T Bank Stadium and this division. So I think that was the best part of that signing. In terms of the rest of the offensive line, let's just focus on the absence of Tyler Linderbaum, because it starts right there. Who's giving Lamar Jackson the ball? And I spoke to some folks that have been just in tune with the movement across this offensive line, with guys leaving and just the status of the holes that they have to fix. And there is confidence there with Corey Bullock, someone that Sam and I have spoken to in the locker room over the past season, and just his confidence and what he brings. But he never really had any prove-it snaps. Tyler Linderbaum obviously handled a bulk of that workload. He was an Iron Man, as a lot of people like to say, for someone who rarely misses a snap. So can Corey Bullock translate confident practice reps to game reps? Those are two totally different things. So I would look to, while they do have confidence there, to supplement that position, because again, losing Tyler Linderbaum, clearly the Ravens did not want to reach that price, and we talked about the timeline of all this craziness earlier. So that's definitely a position of need that I would focus on here as the offseason continues.
Yeah, Bullock, undrafted free agent out of Maryland, hometown guy, who did impress during the preseason, playing with Tyler Linderbaum not in there in the preseason. Got a lot of snaps against both some starter caliber players and backups, fared decently well. Still kind of a practice squad guy at this stage of his career. Got on the team, had a few snaps there, but for the most part, really the Ravens really only know what he is capable of at this stage of his career. You alluded to this earlier, Sam. 4 players signing with John Harbaugh's Giants, led by Isaiah Likely, his 3-year, $40 million deal. But punter Jordan Stout, fullback Patrick Ricard, and safety Ardarius Washington, all following as well. What do you make of this exodus to New York?
I think John Harbaugh had good relationships with guys who could be difference makers and are in the locker room and were looking for more money elsewhere, and said, I'd love to have you come to New York. This has been pretty largely discussed since it happened, but the base contract for Isaiah Likely is less than $1 million more than Mark Andrews, the guy who the Ravens signed, who they had extension talks with both of them. They picked Mark Andrews. You have to wonder if someone in New York said, we want you to come here, and just because they wouldn't pay you, we'll pay you like a tick more. Like maybe they came in this is entirely speculation, so I don't want to go down that road. But good for Isaiah Likely, able to get $40 million. I think he's a guy, from what we've seen,
5 years younger than Mark Andrews.
Yeah, from what we've seen, obviously he had a few disastrous moments this past year, but I always come back to, like, as bad as that goal line fumble or the touchdown that was taken back against the Steelers, like as bad as that was, that 4th down catch,
I was going to say,
in Pittsburgh,
how much money did that
18,
catch make for him?
That when we thought they were going to win, we thought Loop was going to make the kick. I started writing about how that was the biggest redemption play of any Raven all season. Like, Zay Flowers had a great 4th quarter, Lamar Jackson had a great 4th quarter, but holy cow, that catch in that spot on 4th down to go up and make
full
that
extension.
Play, yeah, exceptional. So good for Isaiah Likely, certainly earned a bag. Patrick Ricard at Locker Room Cleanout talked a lot about how, yes, he'd love to be a Raven, but he spent more time talking about how the only reason he's even in this position and having the career he's had is because of John Harbaugh. No surprise there that he wanted to follow him. Jordan Stout, an All-Pro, was certainly going to earn a pay raise. It was just a matter of whether Baltimore was willing to pay it. He became the highest paid punter in the NFL, so good for him to go follow Harbaugh and go make that kind of money. And Ardarius Washington is someone that I think in a lot of ways would have had to prove himself really with this new staff. Like John Harbaugh, more than anyone, knows what he was able to contribute in 2024, and especially at the end of 2024 when that defense turned things around. So that's, maybe more than anything, just a trust factor and knowing what he's been through in his journey from UDFA to the Cinderella of the 2024 defense, even though, he didn't have the best 2025 and missed most of the season. So no real surprises on that front following Harbaugh.
Josh, fellow tight end Charlie Kolar also goes to a Harbaugh, going over to the Chargers on a 3-year, $24.3 million deal, making him reportedly the highest paid blocking tight end in the NFL. Any reactions there?
Yeah, he was never really featured as part of the Ravens passing game, clearly under John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson here in Baltimore, but totally not a surprise. I mean, I saw, I don't have the tweet on top of mind, but no such thing as a coaching tree in terms of the Harbaugh familiarity there. Honestly, like when I saw the news there, I just laughed in terms of Charlie. I mean, we get Jesse Minter, we get. You see all of this back and forth between Baltimore, Los Angeles. Now you get New York involved there. Getting Alohi Gilman, who ended up with the Chiefs. Just not a surprise there to see Charlie Kolar leaving. One of the best personalities, by the way, in the Ravens locker room. He will be missed in that regard.
Yeah, he's a riot. Great guy. Great locker room guy. Everyone loved him. There were double digit, several players posting on Instagram like, "Yeah, Chuck, go get your money." So good for Charlie.
Good social media presence too. He's always online.
Yeah,
love that. You mentioned Alohi Gilman. Other than the guys who go to the Giants, Gilman signs with Kansas City. Draymond Jones goes over to the Patriots, and Jake Hummel signs with the Houston Texans. Of those three guys, Sam, who stands out to you as the biggest loss?
Honestly, Jake Hummel, because Draymond Jones, obviously, like when Draymond Jones left, we were having the Maxx Crosby discussion. I think now we're having the Trey Hendrickson discussion. So either way, the thinking was they probably couldn't afford to bring him back, and that they would go address that position elsewhere. So really enjoyed covering Draymond Jones, but I think that wasn't really a surprise. Same for Alohi Gilman, just because it's obvious that Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks are the duo there, and it makes more sense for Alohi to go somewhere else. It wasn't necessarily a given that he was going to leave, but it was sort of trending in that direction. Jake Hummel's that special teams ace who has familiarity with Anthony Levine Sr., who he blocked a punt, Josh, blocked a punt against Cleveland, right? That set up a touchdown. And he did. Tied for the team lead in special teams tackles. He's a veteran guy in that locker room. He's a well-liked guy. If we want to give some credence to special teams, like in some carryover from coaching staffs, I think he's a guy that is going to be hard to replace, because him and Keandre Jackson were really the two standouts on special teams. You could add TJ Tampa in there too around the second half of the year. So, Jake Hummel, tough loss for them.
We know this Ravens team is going to find that another undrafted gem that's going to contribute on special teams.
Yeah,
so.
we shouldn't be worried.
Yeah, and then on Gilman's front, we'll always have that epic play, man. Kyle Van Noy handing that ball off to Gilman.
Legendary.
On that. Yeah, I mean, those guys provided some moments, unfortunately, and not enough to get done. And this is the NFL. Roster turnover all over. It just feels like certainly a lot, specifically to this Ravens team. Just been a hectic week.
And Kyle Van Noy is still floating out there, am I correct?
He is.
Yeah.
He went on, I think it was a podcast, and he was like, the NFL's weird. 1 year I thought I wasn't going to play, and then in September the Ravens picked me up, and I had a career year, and some years I'm picked up on the first day of free agency. The NFL's weird. But, I mean, he's acknowledged. Like, he might have one more year in him, and he'd love to play. It's just a matter of whether a team's willing to pay for it.
Josh, you mentioned the Jesse Minter effect. Certainly that paid off for Odafe Oweh.
Holy cow.
4 years, $100 million with the Washington Commanders. It's $68 million guaranteed. Not any kind of figures that we thought was possible when the Ravens traded him over to the Chargers midseason. But Los Angeles able to unlock him. Josh, how blown away were you by these final terms?
Guys, I'm never going to forget in Kansas City, that was the game that Lamar got hurt in Week 4. And Odafe Oweh basically approach him in terms of trying to just pick his brain about what has been going on. I believe at that point they were 1-3, and you could tell just things not trending in the right direction. They're not getting the pass rush juice that they need, and he looked up at myself and Gianna Hine and walked right out the door. And we were basically stuck speaking to rookies, undrafted free agents, to ask for the team's mistakes at that point. But, man, what a turnaround for him. And, man, just when you look at that price tag, it's like the Commanders, woof, where are they getting that money from and pouring it into, not just him, but that defense is, after they aged very quickly this past season, this new look Commanders defense, I'm a fan of the direction that they're going, and you just hope for Odafe Oweh's sake that he can produce under Dan Quinn after clearly Jesse Minter was able to unlock that ceiling there for him in the weeks that he had him in Los Angeles.
That's just an insane number. Good for him. He had a heck of a half year in Los Angeles, and Jesse Minter certainly did wonders for him. And Jesse has said it was a lot to do with just injecting confidence and putting him in the right positions. I don't know what Odafe Oweh's agent said to Washington, but he's got a heck of an agent. He certainly deserves a lot of money. I'm not trying to speak ill of that. He certainly earned a strong promotion and pay raise, but that's a lot of money.
A lot of money for a player who we still haven't quite seen reach his full potential that we expected from him.
And his brother's a heck of a basketball player. Otega Oweh at Kentucky, really, really good. I wrote about him last summer.
Can I point in one more small fact? Also, check out that profile that Sam wrote. Guys, Odafe Oweh, $8 million more in guaranteed salary than one Trey Hendrickson.
Makes you wonder.
Big age difference. But yes, last thing on the news and notes here, Sam. Trey Hendrickson, not the only player the Ravens signed on Wednesday or came to terms with. Who were they? Three guys?
Just two quick ones. Chido Bayawuzi, who signed for 1 year, $5 million. That's a really good pickup by the Ravens. Really good retention there. The cornerback depth, the defensive back depth after Marlon and Nate Wiggins looked like it was really going to drop off. So to keep a guy like Chido, who, at the start of last season, they brought in two guys. They brought in Jair Alexander and Chido Bayawuzi. And I remember among the media contingent at training camp, there was a poll about, who do you think is going to be the number 3 cornerback week 1? Is it going to be Chido or is it going to be Jair? And yes, I'm going to toot my own horn. I thought, everyone was saying Jair, and I was like, I feel like it's probably going to be Chido. Jair, he's been a little in and out. I don't know. I think I did it more so just to be different. But Chido proved to be one of the best, not only for the Ravens, but in the NFL, coverage defenders. And yes, like every single other Ravens defender, he wasn't very good at the end of the season. But I always think about that game against the Browns when it was a must-win, because every game was a must-win, and Shedeur Sanders unfurls a potential game-tying touchdown, long ball to the end zone, the left side. It's one-on-one in coverage, and I don't remember who the receiver was, but the ball is in his hands, and Chido rattles it loose, and he saves the Ravens from losing to the Browns, a game that would have really been a stain on the season. So, yeah, Chido was really good for them overall, and I think he's got a chance to be a good contributor again this year if he's healthy. So Chido was one, and the other one we mentioned earlier was Jalen Hawkins from the Patriots, who had a career year in 25, obviously just played for a Super Bowl, signed for 2 years, $10 million.
And the last player that they added in free agency thus far, recording Wednesday night as we speak to you guys on Thursday morning, tight end Durham Smythe.
Oh, yes, thank you.
And obviously this was almost predictable, guys, especially after you see Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler walk out the door. Honestly, a smart ad. Durham Smythe, I actually covered him in Miami, and while he wasn't featured as a pass catcher in Chicago's offense, had just 4 catches last season with Declan Doyle as his offensive coordinator. I think that's the biggest pull here. Guys, the season that I covered him in 2020, he had almost 30 catches. So he is capable in terms of being a decent, a reliable option, but definitely known as a blocking tight end in that Charlie Kohler mode. mold. I'm sorry. And in terms of what he's going to bring to this offense, I would definitely expect him, again, to be a key blocker, perhaps fill in not only for Charlie Kohler, but Patrick Ricard, a huge loss in terms of run blocking in that department. So welcome to Baltimore, Durham Smythe, a familiar face for Declan Doyle joining this offense.
A familiar face for Declan Doyle and Josh Tolentino. We're excited to have you in Baltimore.
Hey, Durham Smythe, I believe a Notre Dame product. So,
and for Kyle Hamilton, too.
Yep, Alohi Gilman leaves, and Durham Smythe, welcome in. I'm sure Kyle Hamilton will be happy.
Nice. There we go. Well, that, as you said, jam-packed episode today. Certainly the Ravens have kept all of us busy over the past few days. Whether or not you cover the Ravens or not, it has had ripple effects here on all of us, but a lot of fun to run through. We're going to go ahead and switch over to a quick segment on Orioles, talk about Chris Davis and his election to the Orioles Hall of Fame.
What if you settle your accident case too soon, only to realize you left thousands, even millions on the table? At Rice Law, we fight for every dollar you deserve. Don't settle for less. Get the right lawyer right now.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.
If you would like what you're hearing on Early Birds podcast, you should definitely sign up for the Baltimore Sun's free sports newsletter sent right to your email. We are in the locker room, the clubhouse, at practice, and at every single game, talking to our sources and observing all of this information that we put into Baltimore Sun's weekly Orioles Insider and Ravens Insider newsletters. Sign up for free at baltimoresun.com/newsletters.
And we're back with just a short segment here, talk about Orioles. Josh and I will dive in on our next episode with Josh's final takeaways from his last few days in spring training, as well as looking at the broader picture of the 2026 Orioles as we get closer and closer to opening day. But there was some big news this week. The Orioles announced their newest inductees, whatever you want to call them, for the 2026 Orioles Hall of Fame. 3 guys, most notably led by Chris Davis, the former Silver Slugger, 295 career home run hitter, who spent nearly his entire career with the Orioles, did come over from the Texas Rangers after a few not-so-great seasons, certainly had his best years with the Orioles before fading off in his 30s, as well as Storm Davis, won the 1983 World Series with the Orioles, a right-handed pitcher who was fantastic in their rotation and then later out of their bullpen, as well as Jim Russo, a longtime scout who signed a couple of guys, including Jim Palmer and Boog Powell. So for Russo, certainly feels overdue that he is added to the Orioles Hall of Fame. But Chris Davis, first time eligible this year. And I don't think that there was necessarily going to be any kind of controversy over whether or not he would get in to the Orioles Hall of Fame. First of all, Orioles are a bit loose in who is brought into their Hall of Fame. Now, this is a result of a big vote having to do with media and some other people involved in who gets these selections. But for the player specifically slot, Adam Jones was the player who gets in last year. This year, we see that it's Chris Davis. Nick Markakis was in the year before Jones. So 3 straight years of guys from that golden era of the 2010s for the Orioles, that 2012 to 2016 stretch when the Orioles had among the most wins in the American League. So for me, Davis ended his career on a poor note. He signed the largest contract in Orioles history to spend the rest of his career with Baltimore, and just certainly does not live up to that contract, really fizzles out. 2014 was also a polarizing year in that he failed a drug test because of Adderall and wasn't allowed to play in the 2014 playoffs. That was ultimately something, only suspended 25 games, was actually able to take the Adderall later on, but certainly for him to not have been part of that run there, a bit of a stain. And then just the way he finished his career, I mean, you go down the list of the batting averages, his final 4 seasons, 215, 168, 179, and 115. Yeah.
I said I wasn't going to say it, but I'm just going to say real quick, and I'm not going to attribute it, but I had a conversation with someone years ago who, I mean, again, you talk Chris Davis, you take the good with the bad with the good. He was such a great player for the Orioles. Didn't he fight Brandon Hyde in one of his final years?
Yes, in the dugout.
So you take the bad with the good, and someone once told me that having watched the Orioles for years and years and years, it was really exciting to see Chris Davis at his highs, and at his lows, this person told me that their blood alcohol content level was higher than Chris Davis's batting average. So, congratulations, Chris Davis, for making it to the Orioles Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's not to crap all over his case. Like that 2013 season, 53 home runs, 138 RBIs, both not only led the major leagues that year, but believe set the Orioles single season records. His 295 home runs just came just short of the 300 mark for his career. Certainly a fantastic career up until he got to that age 30 season. That year, he comes back to the Orioles in free agency, really 10 years ago now, and the Orioles are still paying him. With all of the deferred money that was set up in that contract, having to pay that out every year, they're still feeling the effects of that deal. And that deal, in a lot of ways, for the Orioles being a small market team, not able to absorb that kind of contract being such a colossal failure, did sort of end up resulting in them having to go through their rebuild, hiring Mike Elias, bringing in Brandon Hyde, and kicking off that new era that has led to where the Orioles are now. So you can say that, a lot of years of losing, probably not worth it, but also the fact that the Orioles window is what it is right now, and they have all these young stars. Chris Davis is kind of a big part of reason why for them. So
Without
a doubt. You look at the career, though, I think certainly worthy of Orioles Hall of Fame for the highs that he had, but also it does come with a little bit of what could have been had he been able to really extend his prime into those later years with Baltimore.
Matt, you mentioned the looseness of being the tolerance of getting into the Orioles Hall of Fame. Man, 53 home runs, the home run leader, the franchise home run leader. That's nothing to shy away from. You wonder if that's going to stand with a pretty high and mighty free agent joining the Orioles this offseason, who's 53 home runs, his career high in a single season, ties Chris Davis. So, Pete Alonso, you're up next. Welcome to Camden Yards.
Max Crosby, you're not a Raven, but at least Pete Alonso is still an Oriole.
Shout out JCM, who made it onto the Baltimore Sun's graphic of national media members who reacted to the Max Crosby deal. We got Jacob's tweet slid in there. Really love that in our group chat. But yeah, don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do think that it is a career worth recognizing. And to point this out, Chris Davis was also eligible for the National Baseball Hall of Fame for the first time this year and was not even included on the ballot. And when I reached out to Cooperstown to get a statement on it, they said that there was a committee that ultimately decided his career just didn't meet the mark enough to warrant inclusion on the ballot. And look, none of us expected Chris Davis to get into the actual Hall of Fame, but I did find it a little bit odd that he wasn't at least a guy on the ballot like Nick Markakis, who got one token vote from Dan Connolly, longtime Baltimore sports writer, the only person to give Nick Markakis a vote into the Hall of Fame. I think that even just to have your name on that ballot, it shows that you had a noteworthy career. And Chris Davis, when he was at his best, was one of the best sluggers in baseball, a name that is certainly now officially going to go down in Orioles history as one of the most prolific sluggers to ever put on a uniform. And like I said, it is just kind of a what if now of what it could have been had he been able to remain the kind of player he was. Did they end up trading Manny Machado at that trade deadline? Did the Orioles end up going into the spiral that leads to them firing Buck Showalter and changing their front office and everything? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs, and I think a lot of it starts with what Chris Davis was and wasn't able to do in an Orioles uniform.
We have a busy couple weeks. These next couple weeks as we get closer to opening day in the NFL draft. It'll be interesting at some point when we have some downtime and a down episode because of Chris Davis's entry into the Orioles Hall of Fame, just to do a little bit of a retrospective on such a fascinating career in Baltimore, such a pivotal player of the last decade plus.
Absolutely. Josh, any final words?
Yeah, I got some final words for the good people. Matt, I meant to bring this up last show. Shout out to another Orioles Hall of Famer inducted last year, Adam Jones. We forgot to address his tweet to you during your AMA at the beach.
Yes, more of this.
Shout out to Adam. We're talking about players being online. Shout out Charlie Kohler. Shout out Adam Jones. He is definitely online, and sent Matt a friendly tweet during his AMA. So he's still waiting on it. Well, but maybe next spring down here in Sarasota.
Yeah, for a little background, Adam and I had a little bit of back and forth throughout spring training over whether or not he reads the Sun and how he needs to read the Sun. He doesn't read the banner. He made that clear. But he did. I did a little AMA while I was hanging out on the beach, and he wanted to see the beach bod. And my reaction immediately was nobody wants to see that. But certainly he is still waiting for that photo that will never come. Sorry, Adam.
I highly debated, and now I kind of regret. Like I was next to Matt, and I was behind him at one point, like setting up our beach towels and chairs, and almost snapped one. But
all I brought back is his good tan. All right, that we can take note of. I was told twice today that I'm glowing, so I'm going to take that for as long as it lasts.
You left the aloe vera down here.
I did. Hopefully no one else needed it for the rest of camp, but just in case. Sam, any final words for the good people?
I need to go home and go to sleep, so I'm good.
Yeah, I think we're gonna.
It's been a long day.
We're gonna go ahead and leave it at that. So thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on socials. That's Twitter, that's TikTok, that's Instagram, that's Facebook. Thank you all again so much for listening, and see you next time.
We've won millions, taken on the largest insurers, and backed up our reputation with big wins in the courtroom. But only one injury case matters, yours. So if you want to win, we're ready to fight for you.
Rice Law. Best advice, call Rice.